In this video, I'm going to discuss about plots and elements from Metroid Dread, so if you haven't finished the game yet, you might want to click away as this video will be going into spoiler territory. Okay, so before Samus was adopted by the Chozo, Samus was but a normal child living with her parents at a planet neighboring Zedus named K2L. The citizens of K2L lived in harmony. Then, everything changed when the space pirates attacked. The people were slaughtered by Ridley and his troops, but through the sacrifice of Samus' biological father, Rodney, he managed to take out most of the pirates along with him. Moments later, the Chozo arrived and the would-be adoptive father of Samus, Oldbird, would find the young Samus as the sole survivor of the incident. Oldbird took Samus back to planet Zedus because leaving a baby alone in a now uninhabited planet will very likely lead to Samus to eventually perish. So the Chozo did what any sane person would. Instead of taking Samus to the Federation to have her fellow human take care of Samus, they decided to take Samus back with them. But Zedus' environment is harsh to those foreign to the planet, with its extreme heat. To increase Samus' chance of survival, Mother Brain and the Chozo devised a plan to genetically modify Samus with Chozo DNA so that she can better adapt to the environment. The DNA used to enhance the infant Samus would later be revealed to be from the Chozo named Grey Voice. This will be the first instance where Samus will be genetically modified. This is stated in detail from the Metroid manga and is considered pseudo-canon, but this origin story seems to likely be considered canon in some part as supported with multiple screens from Metroid Fusion, where we can see the glowing Samus alongside Oldbird and Grey Voice. Now we shall fast forward to when Samus was about 15 to 17 years old, just before she joined the Federation military. It is at the same time that Samus very likely received her second genetic modification, but unlike the first time, this one is to make her into a warrior. In Metroid Dread, we learn many new laws regarding the Metroid universe, the first being the Chozo having multiple tribes, namely the warrior tribe led by Ravenbeak, the Morkins, and the science tribe that possessed the powers to control the Metroid, the Thoha. The second important law we learned is that Samus' Chozo genes came from the leader of the Morkin himself, Ravenbeak. This explains Samus' immense prowess in combat. You may ask what this means for Samus' origin story in the manga, and how her Chozo DNA donor was Grey Voice, but the devs got you covered. Through a terrible and almost fan-fiction quality of storytelling, it is revealed that Samus has Thoha genes in her as well, which is the main reason on how she have kept the Metroid genes in her at bay, up until the final battle with Ravenbeak. The Thoha genes within Samus was never explained in Dread from whom it came from, taking the manga into consideration and how Metroid Fusion confirmed the existence of Oldbird and Grey Voice. The Thoha genes is very likely still from Grey Voice himself. Now the real question is, what makes me believe that Samus was experimented on twice, instead of being experimented on only once, with the Chozo throwing in as many Chozo DNA as possible? It all lies within the reveal of when Samus received Ravenbeak's DNA. The third and the most important final evidence. This image here. It shows Samus curled up in a fetus position, then followed by a schematic of Samus right next to Ravenbeak, with the heart and right arm glowing red. Forget about the glowing red part for a moment though, and focus on Samus' appearance here. She is clearly not a young child. Now let's look at her hair. We've seen Samus sporting a few different haircuts throughout her lifetime, but here is a short bowl cut looking hair, which have only appeared during flashbacks for Samus and other end. Now let's recap everything up to now. We have a pseudo-canon manga story that is semi-supported by Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion, where they show an infant Samus needed to have Chozo DNA inserted into her to help her survive. And then we have a flashback in Dread, where Ravenbeak explains to Samus that he donated his genes to her, and the scenes show an adolescent Samus inside a cell. Wait a minute. Who are those two back there? Why isn't this Grey Voice and Oldbird? What are they doing over there? Are they overseeing the second experiment like good parent figures? Or did Metroid Dread just retcon some piece of the manga lore? Let's look over everything again. What's this? Never have any of the games ever shown an infant Samus being genetically modified. And if we look at these fusion ending screens, Zebus doesn't exactly look like a hostile environment the manga had suggested. The schematics have Samus next to Ravenbeak, but there are Chozo letters on the charts too. Using good old wiki, we can decipher that this one says Morkin, and it has lines pointing to Samus and Ravenbeak. What about the other Chozo word there? This one says Toha. But where's the other Chozo? One end of the line points to Samus and the other end leads off screen. Is there another Chozo on the chart, but it couldn't fit in the screen without taking away the focal point of Ravenbeak being the donor for Samus? With this likely means that this is the time when Samus received the first and only genetic modification from the Chozos. Manga is considered pseudo-canon at most, and parts are considered non-canon if there are existing materials that conflict with it, or when new material retcon it. Just when I thought hours of my research went into flames, Mercury's team did extend their hand to save me from this disaster. You see, before Metroid Dread release, there was a website for promoting Metroid Dread, and in it, there were numerous reports posted. It states, when Samus was young, she lost her parents and her home in a tragic incident and was raised by the Chozos on planet Zebus. During that time, she received a Chozo DNA transplant, which allows her to adapt to environments that are otherwise harsh for humans. Metroid Fusion screens definitely confirm Samus was taken to Zebus at an extremely young age, and while Metroid Dread Flashback definitely confirms the Ravenbeak DNA transplant is an older Samus at the time. So that settles it. Samus was genetically modified twice by the Chozos. So that's it, right? Wrong. What if I told you that they experimented on Samus for the third time after? Okay, so this is recorded much later on. I found out in Other Rem there is a scene that shows Samus inside the Varia suit, so the third experiment does not exist, but feel free to continue watching. Later in her adolescent phase, because at no point have we ever seen Samus in her PAL suit at all, until her adult years starting from Zero Mission onwards. I want to look into Samus' hair length first, because this could be very important, or it could just be me grasping at straws, because I found out my theory hold no water midway whilst writing the script, and I didn't want to scrap everything I had up to this point. It seems the length of Samus' hair is generally a good indication of how old Samus is at the time. When she was an infant, the hair was short and curly. By the time Samus received her DNA modification and had joined the Federation military, the hair had grown a bit, but only into a bowl cut. Then at one point, Samus had a very small ponytail when she was serving under Adam in the Federation, where Samus was frustrated with herself for her failure to save Ian, Adam's younger brother. At no time up to this point did it show Samus having a capability to summon the PAL suit. Sure, she was brave, and said things that almost made it sound like she had the suit, but remember, through Metroid Dread's flashback, we already know Samus had enhanced strength through the DNA modification, so it could very well just be Samus thinking she can make a difference due to her Chozo DNA. Samus left the Federation afterwards, very likely returning home, back to Zebus to train under the Chozos, and how to become a proper warrior. During her training back at Zebus, her hair length grew to her back, and this screen likely suggests her Morkin modified right arm allows Samus to wear a gauntlet and use a gun, but that's not the PAL suit. It is very likely only once Samus completed her training, the Chozos once again experimented on Samus, this time granting her the ability to summon her PAL suit. In Other M, we can see Samus neurologically summon her PAL suit, and if something affects her mental focus, her suit will fail to appear. In Metroid Prime Manual, it is also revealed that the PAL suit is integrated into her body. This means that some kind of experiment needed to be done on Samus' brain, and even possibly her whole body. It is true in Dread's flashback that it is likely suggested that Samus received modification to her whole body through Thoha genes, and the PAL suit technology is of Chozo origin, but it is a battle armor. The Thoha are not a warrior tribe, and we can see in planet ZDR, Ravenbeak are mass-producing PAL suits for the Morkins, so it doesn't make sense for the Thoha genes to be the base for the PAL suit. So this leaves the Morkin genes, but nothing in Metroid Dread flashback suggests Morkin DNA was implemented to Samus' body or brain. Morphin genes were only implemented in Samus' right arm and heart at the time, so this leaves the only possibility that she was experimented on the third time. After the events of Other Ram flashbacks, and before Zero Mission took place to have Morphin DNA inserted into her in order to allow her to use the power suit and the arm cannon. With all the source, it is safe to say Samus was experimented on at least twice. The third time, however, is non-confirmed, but the lack of evidence to say that she had her power suit before that seems to support a third experiment. So what do you think? Do you think Samus was only experimented on once, twice, or perhaps even a third time?